Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video I'll be recording in English. Usually I record videos in Marathi or Hindi, but I thought this topic is something that everyone needs to understand, everyone needs to think about. First of all, today is 26/11. Of course, this is one of the darkest days in India's history. I want to pay tribute from my channel and on behalf of my subscribers. I want to pay tribute to all those brave hearts, all those martyrs, hutatmas, who sacrificed their lives, sacrificed everything they had for us to save our country, to save our nation, to save us. So, from all of us, on behalf of all of us, subscribers, whoever is watching, I want to pay tributes to all those brave hearts and martyrs and everyone actually who saved us, who saved our nation. Now, before coming to the book review, I wanted to talk about some things. Usually, my channel, I speak very less about politics and other kind of stuff. But there are some topics, there are some issues where at least I cannot stay neutral. I will not stay neutral because I know what is right and what is wrong in this particular scenario. Had it not been the supreme sacrifice of late Tukaramji Ombade, who sacrificed his life while catching the terrorist called Ajmal Kasab, had it not been his sacrifice, today we would have had a very different conversation. We would have had a very muddled, distorted and false conversation, basically. So it's difficult to say how much this day means for us, for all of us Indians, and especially in the context of the book that we'll be talking about, that is The Myth of Hindu Terror by RVS Mani, who was one of the officers in the Home Ministry. Then, like I said, the issue itself was so sensitive that I was initially reluctant to read this book, to be honest, because I thought I knew a lot of stuff already. That was the reason of my reluctance, because I do read a lot. Being a student of history, I do read a lot of things. And I thought maybe I know everything. But when I started reading the book, all of a sudden I realized I know nothing. And probably almost all of us, like common people, know nothing about what happens in the so-called power corridors of Delhi, South Block, North Block, whatever it is, and the politics that goes on national level, local level, whichever it is. So that was the first shock that I had when I started reading this book, because I thought it all began during the Malegaon blast and all that. The book begins with the incidences that I'm sure have lost somewhere in the newspapers. Nobody even know these incidences. To go into, I won't go much into the details, but I would like if you can read those incidences, like how it builds up, how a narrative is built. And some politicians are extremely efficient in building the narratives. So he talks about an incident in Nanded, he talks about incidents in Maligaon that we all know about. Then he talks about an incident that happened in Goa. I'm almost sure none of you know that incident. I did not know that incident that happened. And this is how it got built up. Then we had the Mumbai local train attacks. Then we have terrorist attacks in Delhi. We have terrorist attacks in Varanasi. Lots of places. And then it starts building up. Initially, when I was reading the book, I was having an impression is okay, maybe there are few more incidents that I don't know about. It's possible. It's possible. We don't usually get to know all the incidents, and we don't even remember all the incidences. But those incidences are uh, discussed in a good detail. I won't say extremely detailed because this book is some kind of a memoir of Mr. RVS Mani about his time in Home Ministry and the incidences happened through, because he was one of the persons. Uh, Now I'll talk about the procedure also, but let me finish up talking about the incidences. There is one chapter about the German bakery blast in Pune as well. I come from Pune, so I know that place, and I was I used to read a lot about that because I belong to Pune. I know it, and then it starts adding up. Then it starts adding up. Like it it never happens just like that. A narrative is built, a case by case, incidents by incidents, evidence by evidence, forged evidence, mishandled cases, misrepresentations in the courts. While reading these books, you will understand how rotten some of the system, some of the portions or some sections of the system are. How rotten, how, if I may say so, bigoted in certain ways our system is, some people are especially. And then he talks about how it works. Now, this is very interesting. Apart from talking about the incidences, he also explains how the parliament works, how home ministry works. Now we don't get to read that. Common people do not know how it works. All we know is what we see on the TV on the YouTube nowadays. But when a question is asked in the parliament, okay, what happens? Like when a question comes to home ministry, who collects the data, who writes the answers, how those are represented, who asks the question. Like this system is something I did not know about, and that was something new I learned from this book. So at least I'm telling about what new I learned from this book, and it's been a lot more revealing book to me than I thought. And he was the person, RVS Mani, the writer, was the person who was responsible for many of the responses that were given through home ministry. And he explains in a certain way with evidences. Now, the parliament conversations are recorded. You cannot forge those. Those are recorded. Those are public records. Anyone can go there and read them. So it's not like it's something behind the door, somebody's doing something. It's not like that. It's all in writing. It's all on records. It's public record. And then he explains as to how home ministry handled all these cases. Now, if you think about the time between 2004 to 2000, around 10, 11ish, around some that time, there was not a single month when we did not have any such terrorist incidents in India. It was becoming like a common thing all around. Maybe it's Bangalore, Bangalore, I'm sorry, maybe it's Rajasthan, Delhi, like you just name it. Even the city like Pune. Pune is supposed to be one of the most peaceful cities, and still we have the terrorist attack. So that was a time when I, even because I was growing up as well, I was a lot younger and, eh, to be honest, a bit naive about how world works, and I was worried at that time. And when I read about those incidences and how the Home Ministry answered or tackled those incidences, it's appalling how those incidences were handled. It's just, it it makes you depressed. I mean, personally, I did not feel any anger because whatever has happened has already happened. It just made me sad as to why would my government, when I say my government, why would someone who is supposed to be the protector, who is supposed to be the savior of citizens, would do that? I just felt sad when I read that. And this should not be the reason why you should not read the book. You should read the book. I'm not saying that you will feel the same. It just, I felt sad because my image of certain ministries, the government, like I said, was so naive. Like, I used to think, okay, parties, that's fine, but the government has to have some dignity and responsibility. But the Home Ministry's responses were so pathetic. And the pinnacle of it, a lot of people don't know, a lot of people think about when it all got started, when it all got started. A lot of people think about the Godhra incidents, okay, when like started and all that. Maybe it's because it got more popularity and more coverage than some other incidences. But there is one incidence, okay, one incidence for which RVS Mani, Mr. RVS Mani, has written a whole chapter about. When I went through the index, I was just glancing over it, there is one incidence for which he has written a whole chapter about it. That is the Isra Chahan'S case. Now again, being a reader, I love to read, so I thought I knew most of the facts those were presented in the courts, because those are out. Sorry, my connection just got lost. And when I read that chapter basically takes you deep down in the rabbit hole called the politico-administrative system. Now, this is my word. I don't know if this is actually a word or not. This is what I call it. Politico-administrative system. When politicians and administration works in tandem. He explained an incident. I would recommend to read the book because I will not reveal, because he has given the names. I mean, here's the thing. The reason I find this book more authentic because the names are given. The people are named. It's not like some anonymous politician, some anonymous reporter, nothing like that. He has given the names, he has given the times, incidences, documents, whatever, links, everything. There is certain incidents after the Isra Jahan's case and Malegaon blast and all that. He talks about a certain politician, and when I say politico-administrative conspiracy, if I may say so, or functioning, he talks about a politician who is still active and a police officer who accompanied that politician in the chamber, in the office of Home Minister, Okay, now you should read about that in the book, but the think about it, in general, a police officer is not supposed to accompany a politician. That's not how it works. This is not how the government officers are supposed to work. Those are independent bodies. They have their own works, they have their own ways of functioning. But he talks about specifically about a politician and a police officer in the office of Home Minister. And initially he is surprised, but then he gets to know, okay, this is part of the whole narration building. Now here is his trouble. Of course, he talks about that. I forgot his name. But the police officer from Gujarat who claimed that Narendra Modi ji gave orders to let everything happen and all that. I will say nonsense, because Honorable Supreme Court has said that this is just hearsay, there is no proof and all that. So who am I to question that? I'll not cross Supreme Court, they know the evidences and facts better than me and all of us basically. But he talks about that officer also, and he has given a very fantastic point. Now, what I said, he has given the way the system works, which we don't know about. I did not know about that. He talks about, here's the funny part, if there are officers in a room of any minister or somebody, and you have rows of chairs, right? To put in mathematical way, the distance between the minister and the officer is inversely proportional to the rank. So higher the rank, he'll be closer to the minister. Lower the rank, he'll be farther away from the minister. And this particular officer, he was probably of the lowest rank in that chamber at that time when Godhra thing was happening. I mean, he said if that is the case, he would have been standing outside the door of the chamber, not even inside. There were so many heavyweight officers there present. It's impossible that he gets so close to the chief minister, especially in that time. This is how system works. He has given that, and he talks about various court cases and what he has to do, the documents and whatnot. But the title itself, The Myth of Hindu Terror, you do get to see some kind of a narration building, and it builds up, it adds up. And personally, I knew there is nothing like Hindu terror. It's just nonsense. Like I said, there are some topics, some issues I will not stay neutral about. It's just, nonsense. And it builds up, and he is giving the incidences and evidences, like I said. And after that, the 26/11 happens. Now here comes a very different chapter, a very different section in the book. I will personally divide the book in two sections. One is the built up, and the other one is 26/11 and aftermath, and the building of the myth of propagation of the myth of Hindu terror. One is the built up, and in the built up you have all these cases, Isra Jahan case, Sohrabuddin case, and I mean, it is so funny. It's not funny, it's sad basically, that we have people who sympathize with terrorists. It's like, what's the point? If you are so educated and you still have sympathy towards terrorists, God bless you. That's all I can say. And then 26/11 happens. Now, there are few things that I did not know about. Okay. First thing, almost all the security related officers, almost all security, internal security, okay, related officers, Home Ministry, then IB, and those people who work on the internal security. Do you know they were on an official visit to Pakistan just before 26/11. I don't know how many people know this. I I certainly was not too much aware of this thing, and I was aware that some officers were there, but not up to this extent that there was not a single person, responsible person, to handle this situation from the administration point of view, from the Home Ministry, available in India at that moment of time when 26/11 happened. Think about it. Think about, like, you have the worst terrorist attack in your country, and your security establishment is not available at that moment. Now, here is the fun part. That is why I'm recommending you to read this book. Here is the fun part. RVS Mani, because of some reason, some official reason, he had some work. He could not go. So he was the only person from the Home Ministry who stayed back in India. Okay. Now, all these people were supposed to come back on 25th of November. Okay. All these people were supposed to come back on 25th of November. But he has named the person. Okay. Please read the book. I will not reveal what the book, all the details of the book. This is the book review. He has named the officer from the border security related, office, or that particular section of national security. He agreed to the Pakistani counterpart to stay one more day in Pakistan. Okay, they were supposed to come back before 26/11, but they agreed to stay for one more day in Pakistan for some frivolous reason. Like, according to RVS Mani, this doesn't happen. Like, you have a proper plan, you have the schedule, and that's how you go with it, and you come back. That's it. So, I mean, it's not a trip. It's not a picnic. It's not like you're going to Simla and Manali. Okay, let's go to Kulu as well, just because we're here. It's not like that. So they went on an official visit. They were supposed to come back one day before, but they did not. The reason is, one of the person from our establishment agreed. Now, why he agreed is something for us readers to think about. That's what RVS Mani also expects us to think about. But he agreed, and the Pakistani establishment took all those officers. I mean, just think about this. I just felt silent, when I read about this. The whole security establishment of a country like India is in Pakistan on an extra day there in Pakistan on the request of Pakistani officers, to which an Indian officer agrees with, and the reason is extremely frivolous and stupid. Now, the Pakistani officers and all that take all our delegation to a place called Murree. Now, if you don't know where Murree is and what the geography is, Murree is in the desert. Okay, it's in middle of nowhere. Now, it is so out of reach that you don't have a phone connection, you don't have network connections, nothing. So when the 26/11 happened, okay, our establishment was in Murree, where there was no telephone connection, no internet connection, no communication, nothing. Think about it. it's a wonder how we survived. It's just a wonder. By God's grace, Bhagwan ki krupa, that's what we say, it's just by God's grace that we survived. And this was the person, RVS Mani, who had to stay behind for some official work. And then he realized, like, okay, what is happening here? Now there is another. Now some people talk about PM was supposed to go there, not supposed to go there, and all that. That is not a part of this book, but I'll recommend you to read the documents of that time and the case files that we have. But there was another thing which I did not know about, and this is part of the dossier that was given to Pakistan. Now, this conversation is between two terrorists, where the terrorists, the mastermind, is telling the terrorists here in Mumbai that there is one officer, one minister, and some important person in Taj Hotel. Make the most of it. In general, forget about whether it's Taj, whether it's 2611. What exactly this officer, now this officer, who that officer is, he has given the name, okay? Read the book. I will not reveal the names. That's not the point here. But this is something I did not know about. I only knew about the officer. I did not know about the minister. Now, who that minister is, well, read the book. But there was a minister, there was an officer, and an important person, some business person. What are these three people doing together on 2611? What are they doing there? And how, okay, here's another point. How does the handler in Pakistan know about this thing? How do they know about this? How do they know about this? Anybody's guess. I mean, it just makes me sad. It's like, what were we doing? Like some person sitting in Pakistan knows about who is there in Taj Hotel, and they do this act of terror, and we are helpless. Now there is another thing. It's like he also talks about the movement of security personnel. Mumbai has its own NSG, people around, and Mumbai police is also well trained. Mumbai police is very much trained for a lot of law and order situations. I mean, the history has been such. But the Home Ministry acted so late. I mean, he talks about it's like you have security people in that city. So instead of using those people, you collect people from Delhi, fly them in other state. It's wastage of time. It's just wastage of time. Now, why did this waste the time? That's again anybody's guess. But this does not add up. This does not add up. This is not how you're supposed to work. Then again, another topic he talks about is David Headley. Okay? And this is where the case of Isra Chahan comes in, because David Headley was the person who talked about Isra Chahan openly with, he talked with our courts and our lawyers, advocates in India about that case. He was the person another person who gave the evidences about Isra Jahan being involved in certain activities. Now this is part of, again, the court proceedings and these public documents. Those are case files. Anybody can go and read what were the evidences and all that. But he had done Reiki for us, and people knew about David Headley. He was not an unknown person, and yet our government was reluctant even to talk to him. Okay? I guess because of people's pressure, they finally talked with him. But this is how he connects the 2611 to Isra Jahan case. That's why I said, for some reason, I thought while reading the book, Isra Jahan's case is the pivotal case in his narrative and his built up of the book, which I find convincing in certain way because it was one of the turning points in the recent history of India when it comes to counterterrorism and terrorism activities and all that. Now, this is another section of the book, and another interesting section of the book is about his own experiences, his own adventures. Now, what that adventure is, I'll just give a slight glimpse or some. I don't want to disclose it because I would recommend you to read his adventures. But there was a point when RVS Mani has written that people of certain class, political class, we can say, people with some influence over the narrative wanted to kidnap RVS Mani. They wanted to kidnap him, and he had his own adventures. And even though I say adventures, those had some really adverse effect on him, on his life, his personal life, his parents, because from what I read, he was very close to his parents, and he was very worried about them as well at times, and that affected him, his life, and his life went into a toss because that's what he says, that's what his narration is, that was his memoir is, that he came from a position where the truth is truth, a fact is fact. There is no perception building as such. You present the facts and let the courts decide. He comes from that schooling of administration, and he paid the price for that. He was transferred from home ministry to some industrial, something textile, like some ministries which are obviously not as important as home ministry. When he was in home ministry, he had access to some really interesting information. That's what he talks about. Then he met with some of really nice officers, police officers and administration officers, IS officers, IFS officers. He talks about those also. And at the end, he retires basically from the services. And when that's what he kind of mentioned, like when he looks back, was it worth it, was it not worth it, because he lost his family members and all that. He went through like a turmoil. It's a very sad story in the end. But all these questions, he wants us to think about, he wants us to read about, he wants us to educate ourselves and learn from the resources. And do you know the funny thing? Now, there is one politician who is famous for Hindu bashing, like he just does it all the time. No, there are a couple of those, but one is more famous for such things. But in Parliament, when 2611 happened, now this is again, it's part of public documents. This is not something he just made up. He thought of. He overheard someone talking about it. It's not like that. It's part of our public records. Anyone can go there, and I've seen, those are available online. You can go online, and I've cross-checked it, so I can say this with certainty that it was Mr. Antule who was the first politician or the member of the parliament to talk about involvement of Hindu organizations in 26/11 attacks. It was painful. It was painful. You know, there can be political, ideological differences. There can be, but I tell you why I felt bad, why I felt sad. I mean, I just felt sad. It's like because Antule comes from the same state that I come from. He comes from Maharashtra. He comes from the region called Konkan. He knows the people. I mean, there can be fringe elements everywhere, but how do you perform such a conspiracy on the, like, how do you accuse like communities and organizations for such thing without any evidence? And he was countered in the parliament. He was countered in the parliament by other politicians. I just feel bad. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? And he was the first person to call it like a conspiracy by the Hindu organizations, the 26/11. What to say? Man, this was the time when it's like, that's it, right? That's it. You don't even have. I mean, this is the second day probably, or the 20th of 11. I forgot the date, but we don't even have the whole evidences yet. The investigation is not complete. No court case has been filed. Nothing. And you are standing up in the parliament and saying it's because of such and such people. How does this country run? I mean, how did we survive that? This is the biggest myth. Forget about the myth called Hindu terror. The biggest myth is, how did we survive? How did India survive all these things? That is just a miracle. I don't know how we survived. But after reading this book, I'll just give my final thoughts about the book, like what it gave me. It gave me a perspective that we don't know anything. We don't know anything, not even the tip of the iceberg. Like, it's easy to say like this is the tip of the iceberg, there's lot of things underneath the water. No, we don't even see the tip of the iceberg. We don't know what happens in those power corridors. We don't know what happens in all this security establishment, all those officers and politicians and ministries, and we don't know anything. We don't know anything. This is the perspective that I got from reading this book. And all of a sudden, now I see a lot of things from a very different perspective. I'm sure when you will read this book, you'll get this perspective that we don't know anything. We have no idea what happens behind the scene. And here we are sitting on social media, talking about what should be done, what not should be done. Nobody knows, very few people know. I mean, here's the thing. How was it possible for a politician to accuse organizations and create a perception called this was an act of Hindu terror? How can a politician do that? And how did people accept it? People have written books about it. I mean, Honorable Supreme Court has heard the case, and people have written books about it, like this is the Hindu sajish and all. This is nonsense. Like I said, forget about what I think. Forget about what others think. At least listen to the Supreme Court, At least have some faith on Supreme Court, at least. How do we survive? That's just a miracle. But this is the perspective that I got when I read the book. It's like, we know nothing. We have no idea what happens. It's like, at least now I don't have any ideas. And we certainly should stop, wasting our time thinking about all those incidences that we see. We have no idea what happens behind the scene. You have no idea. Even though, like I said, even though being a reader, I thought I knew a lot of things about these cases, but I, I, I just realized I know very less. It goes so deep, it goes so dark that there will be a point while reading the book that you'll just feel, how is this country running? Like I said, it's a miracle how this country runs. But you will definitely see how the perception was built, how the narration was built. And yeah, there is one section, one chapter, a couple of chapters on the role of media. Now we all know what role media played during that time. Pakistani handlers were seeing what is happening on the TVs, and our journalists were trying to catch the glimpse of our brave soldiers risking their lives to save everybody's life, showing them, okay, they are on this floor, they are on that floor. I mean, and those journalists, because of whom we lost more of our soldiers, more of our people, more of those brave police officers, are still running around like intellectuals. They're still running around like they did the right thing. They did not do the right thing. They did not do the right thing. Freedom of press, I understand. But that freedom of press should not help the enemy nation. It should not be the case. It should not be the case. Like I said, I cannot be neutral on certain topics. I will not be neutral on certain topics. This is an incident that I will never forget, and I will never forgive. I will never forgive this, and I will never forgive anyone. It's not just about the Kasab and those terrorists. Those are the ones that we saw, but there are so many people behind the scene. It applies to them also. We should not forgive them. We should not forget them. We should teach our children, the next generations to come, about what happened, and not to listen to the propaganda perpetrated by certain politicians for their vested interests. The myth of Hindu terror. That's why I chose to talk about that book on this particular day. I thought this is the better day to talk about it, because I've read the book long back. It's been a couple of months now. So this was a topic I wanted to talk about today. I it's a bit lengthy video today. I know that, but it's slightly emotional. Like there is just one question. Ask yourself this one question. Had it not been the supreme sacrifice of late Shri Tukaramji Ombade, what would have been the perception? What if Ajmal Kasab was not caught? I mean, people have found his family in Punjab section, Okada section of Pakistan, right? We know who the handlers are. Those handlers are running free in Pakistan, okay? And we are talking about peace. It's a joke. It's a joke. And till the perpetrators of 2611 are not punished, we will never forgive and forget. It's a promise. Okay, so that was the video, and that was my book review about the Myth of Hindu Terror by RVS Mani. Please do read the book, like I said, and there are lots of anecdotes in between. Like I just covered a few sections of the book and what I felt while reading the book. Maybe you'll find some more stuff into that. Maybe it will help you think more. So please do read the book and let me know what your thoughts are, if what I talked about made sense to you. And I urge everyone who is watching this video, everyone who will watch this video, is that politics अपनी जगह पे चलता रहेगा. The nation should survive. nation should survive. The ministry, the home ministry, the people whom we trust that they will protect us, the restoration of that faith is more important, because at least from what I read, the system is not good. System is not good. I don't know current situation. Somebody needs to write some book after maybe 10 years to understand what was happening at this point of time while we were talking. But at that time, at least, it was not good. It's just a miracle how we survived, to be honest. So again, from me, my family, and this YouTube family, all my subscribers, on behalf of all of us, I pay tribute to all those people who sacrificed their lives, and that is the ultimate sacrifice anyone can give. There is no way to measure the importance and the value of it. It's just they just sacrificed their everything for us, and here we are talking nonsense about them all the time. Think about it. Think about it. And please do not, accept whatever you read on WhatsApp, whatever you read on social media. Do your own research. Verify whatever you read online, because today now anyone can talk anything and muddle up the topic. Do your own research, read about it, then come to conclusion. Until then, it's a hearsay. Unless you don't read yourself, unless you don't explore yourself, it will be hearsay. So again, thank you for all those people at those times, and not just the soldiers. They were the hotel managers, common people who helped each other, because at that time helping, that's when the character of the person is tested at the difficult times. And all those people who showed character, who sacrificed their lives for us, we owe a lot to them. Now, what we need to do is never forget and never forgive. Never forgive those. So thank you everyone for listening to my, I will say, book review, but I just feel it's more emotional topic than just a book review, because somewhere it still hurts me that the people who were behind this are still, are not punished. It hurts. Somewhere it hurts me that people who propagated this nonsense, that it was some of an internal job, some people from certain community from India, who did that. It just hurts me. Without any evidences, people are writing books about it. We have a director whose son was involved with Headley, and he is still running around, like nothing happened. What kind of a country, we want? It's certainly not the right way to deal with these things. I just want you to all wake up. Don't believe on whatever people says on social media. Read yourself, do your own research, read books like these, which are more fact based, because he is giving the references, he is calling out names and all that, and you can verify it. The verifiable information is more valuable than just random rants on the social media. So thank you everyone for joining me for this video. Please do read the book, and let me know if you liked the book, what were your thoughts, and please pray for all those brave people, all those martyrs, all those people who sacrifice their lives to save others' lives. Just pray for them, and never forget them. Thank you. Jai Hind.